All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Non-Victim Nation podcast. I am joined today by Richard Bates, who is the founder of the STS group. And at the risk of not saying it incorrectly, I'm going to have you say what that means.
Stands for Saguaro Training and Solutions Group.
Okay. And so not only that, but you are currently law enforcement.
Yes,
Okay.
about 18 years.
Okay. And so just like the little bit of research that I did, like looking at the website and learning a little bit more about you, you have like pretty extensive background. Did you get into some of that?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I don't know if you noticed, but the very last thing at the bottom of my bio is I like to say the resume does not make a teacher.
Right,
So
right.
I've
Very
had
true.
the opportunity, I guess you could call it, or blessing, or whatever word you choose to use, to have a lot of experience. I've done a lot of things throughout my career.
Hmm.
Um, Both before I was in law enforcement, traveling around doing martial arts, going to the Philippines, studying Filipino martial arts, learning a couple languages, coming back. Um, in my law enforcement career, I started about 18 years ago. About a year on, right off FTO, I got picked up to go help out gangs do a special project for about 6 months. So I got TDY to there for about half of my shift each week. I went from that. I did two martial task force shortly after. Worked heavily with our street crimes unit, giving them work to do,
Okay.
to put it that way. And then uh, after that, got started running search warrants. Got picked up on narcs right about 3 years in. So I did undercover narcotics for a while, which isn't wasn't my career goal.
Hmm.
The undercover narcotics was more of a footstep to get into plainclothes street crimes. While I worked on undercover narcotics, I bought dope, I sold dope, I did fugitive apprehensions a little bit at the time. The way the dynamic was organized. One of three people that worked as an undercover hitman, so I got hired to kill some witnesses that some guy was in jail.
Nice.
That was actually a really nice case because there's only at that time there had been three people total in the entire department that have ever done anything like that, and
Hmm.
being asked to do that was a big responsibility and a big honor. And the successful completion of it, the guy got like 40 years on a plea, so
Hmm.
that worked out pretty good. I went from there to street crimes, which was just plain clothes, high enforcement apprehensions. We worked with our community criminal investigations unit. They'd come up with the suspect, identify armed robbery guy, ag assault guy, say, hey, go find him, bring him in, burglary suspects, felonies, other than like our high violence potential that our violent offender unit would go for.
Hmm.
Anything below that we would do. So getting into street crimes, went through SWAT school, got basic SWAT operator certified, went through a couple other undercover schools, some tactics schools, some plainclothes schools, some rescues, so just a bunch of different schools
Right.
on tactics related to plainclothes operations. Uh, Took over the training role for my unit, so conducted our trainings for vehicle operations, high risk vehicle stops, our surveillance trainings, our firearms training. We ended up getting AZ Post certified as a firearms instructor. So I was handling all that for street crimes for our unit and putting together groundwork for how we would keep doing things in
Hmm.
that time. And then family takes precedence. So I left
Right.
street crimes after about 6 years of that and went back to patrol and had a steady schedule.
Okay.
The wife comes and goes, hey, you need to be home. It's never home
Right.
in a call out type street crimes unit. And best decision I ever made was putting family first. And as a result, my oldest kid's now a cop too. So I guess it's either a success or a failure, depending on the way you look at it.
Right.
Um, and then everybody else is doing great. So that was kind of my background in that field. And then as I got older and more mature, I guess, in law enforcement, my primary focus started to turn towards patrol operations. And that I firmly believe the patrol officer has the highest training need and skill set need out of anybody in the agency because they're the first responders.
Okay.
The patrol is typically not given or allocated the resources to have that training schedule, training program, training regiment to
Hmm.
maintain those high levels of skills. It's usually allocated to specialty units. Specialty units get the time paid to go train, get the opportunity to go to different schools, get different conferences. SWAT teams spend most of their week training for call outs. Patrolmen, whatever here's your quarterly qual, some trainings in between. Um, Good luck, when that active shooter
Yeah.
comes out and, you
Right.
know, it's a patrol that gets ambushed. It's a patrol that responds to the active shooter, the violent crimes in progress, the armed robberies in progress.
Hmm.
Everybody else kind of shows up after patrols either settled it down or
Right.
contained it. So,
Hmm.
so now I push heavily to make sure patrol guys or guys that are on front line
Hmm.
um, get as much training as they can.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this in other episodes too about like the amount of training that an average officer gets versus what they probably should have.
Yeah,
There's quite a delta between the two.
there's a huge gap
Yeah.
in what you think you should have, what would be ideal versus what realistically occurs. And I get it. There's a whole bunch of logistics. You can't take 1,000 patrol guys and put them through the same training schedule as your smaller SWAT team or whatnot, where
Hmm.
you can miss them for 2 days for training. Take half your patrol force and they're gone for 2 weeks out, 2 days out of the week training. Who's responding to calls for service?
Right.
But I still think there should be a movement or a push to provide more training time during their work
Hmm.
shift, either through small like a la carte type classes or trainings, and then bulk put them together, kind of.
So, how much of that do you think is a limitation of they just don't have enough people versus they're just not willing to put the budget forward to like make sure that it happens?
That's that's above my pay grade. I'm not an administrator,
Hmm.
but I think a lot of it has to do with, unfortunately, a lot of our patrol guys aren't interested in training. Just
Okay.
show up and I'm done. Let me go check my calls and go home. Those that are faced with the budgetary restraints and
Hmm.
then the logistical restraints of providing that training. So it's
Hmm.
kind of a multifaceted. And oftentimes you're told, well, no one will go to that training. We'll host a class.
Hmm.
Everybody show up, and nobody shows up. So they feel like,
Right.
why are we even offering it if nobody does show up, kind of thing. So
I was just thinking it'd be interesting if they could like if they had like a surplus of like an extra 20% of personnel that they can rotate in and out. That way they're not taking people off of the street. And that way that it is part of their for these 2 days out of the week. This is your time that you're getting trained. The time that you learn to deal with all of the things that are probably going to come at you.
yeah, I think well, I, right now I don't think it's ever going to happen. Most agencies are severely short-staffed as
Right.
is. Um, I'd be happy with just half a shift a week.
Hmm.
Your Monday on your whatever day falls on the week. Hey, your first 5 hours out of a 10-hour shift is you're going to go train
Right.
and then apply it for the week, and the next week we'll build on it or we'll
Hmm.
approach another subject or topic.
Right.
I think that's pretty feasible because during that 5 hours you can take one squad at a time, and then everybody will just backfill. As it gets busy, it gets busy. We're short staffed anyways,
Hmm.
but it's not for at least it doesn't make everybody feel like, well, they're all training and now they're not here shagging calls and
Right. Yeah.
kind of thing.
That makes sense.
So that background, to get back to the original
Yep.
question,
That's
so
okay.
we kind of circled around here. Um, it drove me to initially create a group called BFTM Group. So
Hmm.
there's vestiges of out there floating around in the interwebs. It was Boys from the Mountain. It was just a group of guys. The idea was to gather like-minded individuals, work on self-reliance skills,
Hmm.
whether it's firearms, whether it's survival, whether it's food storage, canning, skill sets that are help you drive towards a more self-reliant mindset.
Hmm.
While I was doing that, I found I really liked teaching and teaching putting these on and these hosting these little group events and teaching. I really enjoy it.
Right.
I taught martial arts before I became a cop. In fact, the funny story is everybody thought I was going to open up a school, a dojo. When I returned from the Philippines, I decided not to and pursue law enforcement instead. The So I've taught before, but when it came to these kind of skills, it just seemed more. It clicked with me. I just
Hmm.
really enjoyed watching somebody who's never touched a gun, for example,
Right.
and who's maybe apprehensive or understanding the complexities of interpersonal human aggression,
Okay.
which is quite frequent. There's not a lot of people that have been confronted by somebody who wants to hurt them, not just angry at them,
Right.
just wants to hurt them. Like people get shy or shy away from somebody being angry at them. Very few people have experienced somebody who's trying to actually cause you harm in a way that's detrimental,
Hmm.
not just shove you out of it, but I'm going to hurt you, and either you're going to die from it or you're going to be permanently physically disabled from it.
Right.
So watching somebody understand that random violence happens
Hmm.
and being prepared to deal with it, the confidence boost. So something I've discovered is the more confident somebody is in their skill sets, the more relaxed or cool headed they are when faced with a critical stress incident. Decision making becomes easier, skill performance becomes better because the higher level of skill allows you to calm, maintain cool headedness, apply what needs to be applied to the problem solving of the event as it's unfolding. So seeing somebody who's never touched a firearm to somebody who can make hits under a complex interleave drill that
Hmm.
requires cognitive problem solving and successfully do so is probably the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like I love seeing that. There's nothing greater for me than seeing a student succeed
Right.
because I tell them all the time, look, I can't go fight your gunfight for you. I'm
Right.
not going to be there. And the police, some would love to be there, but they can't. Like we can't be everywhere at once.
Hmm.
Very rarely, and does an officer have the opportunity to stop a violent crime at the precipice of its beginning.
Hmm.
Very more frequently, they just show up to clean up and document what happened. Occasionally, you get lucky enough. I've been fortunate enough to stop violence in the middle of it happening,
Hmm.
um, homicides and robberies, but that's so rare. It doesn't occur. So you are, in fact, your own first responder.
Right.
Um, and the other side of that is the day chooses you. So you and
Yes.
I, we're not out looking for trouble. We're not trying to cause violence, critical stress. We're not, hey, I'm going to go pick a fight with that guy today because, his beard isn't as cool as mine. And I say that facetiously, right? But like people's threshold for when they're going to use deadly violence against another person
Uh-huh.
is not the same as somebody who isn't out looking for trouble. You and
Right.
I would look at it and go, well, he has to meet these key requirements. It's an imminent threat to my physical safety. If I don't stop him right now, I'm going to die, or somebody I care about is going to die.
Right.
Like these are the thresholds we apply to ourselves. A vast majority of our population that's out there is
Hmm.
you just looked at me sideways, so I'm going to stab you to death.
Yeah.
Um, so not having that level of preparedness and being at that point. So I love being able to help people prepare themselves for those moments that they cannot avoid
Right.
because we win 100% of the fights we avoid.
Hmm.
We train and prepare for the ones we can't.
Right.
So that, sorry.
Yeah. So I was going to say, so like when you came back from the Philippines and you had that potential to open a school, so what was it that were you just was it just kind of a calling that you felt like you needed to be in law enforcement that took you more that direction?
Yes. So I came back from the Philippines right after 9/11. So
Okay.
I was in the Philippines from 1997 to 2002. Um, it's 5 years, right?
Hmm.
Just shy of 5 years because it wasn't all of 2002. But 9/11 is what drove me back. I was actually going to stay in the Philippines, open up a school, do some teaching there, and then fly back and spend about 5 to 10 years over there rather than the minimum of 5 years. I ended up staying there. 9/11 drove me back.
Okay.
Went back, started going to school. I got a job doing transports around the country. I got to go fly, pick somebody up. They either flew or they drove to a rehabilitation center.
Hmm.
Had an incident in Chicago with Chicago PD, and the Chicago officer goes, "You know what? You should come apply and be a Chicago cop. It'd be great." Now that guy wasn't the greatest ambassador for Chicago because he was huge, just and
Okay.
his light colored shirt was absolutely covered in whatever the Philly cheesesteak he just finished eating. And he's talking to me, going, "You should come be a." Well, I can't do a Chicago accent, but
Right.
a cop. There's police officers and there's cops. You can be a cop. I'm like, but it put the seed in my head, so I
Uh-huh.
started thinking about it and looking into it, and then what did it was a conversation with somebody I was having a conversation with somebody. We were doing some training, and the conversation of bullies and fistfights came up,
Hmm.
and it's like, you're right. I don't like bullies, and I'm not afraid of a fistfight. I should go be a cop, and so I went and became a cop.
There you go.
And um, funny story: the very first interview I had with the police department, they asked me why I wanted to be a cop, and this is not the correct answer. I don't like bullies. I'm not afraid of a fist fight because I did not get hired on that interview. I said, yeah,
Okay.
thanks for coming. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that was the reason. I don't like bullies. I don't like the. There's members of our community that cannot protect themselves.
Right.
Children, elderly, infirmed, and unaware, and that doesn't give somebody who's stronger, more capable, the right to go and
Hmm.
take.
Hmm.
There has to be some level of order between the chaos, or we devolve into might is right. And I had a conversation with a really skinny anarchist once who told me, "I want no law. Might is right. No government." I go, "You don't want that, bro."
Right.
He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Mind you, he's 110 pounds, 5 foot, kinky side. He's a skinny little guy." Um, he goes, "Why not? I want that. I don't want anybody." I go, "No, because uh, guys like me will take everything from guys like you. If there's no law, and there's nothing you can do about it because there's nothing you can do."
Right.
Um, I thought about that for a minute. Makes sense. Yeah. So there should be some line between order and chaos.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not a big government fan, but I am a big fan of order, a distinction between order and chaos, and the weak being protected from those that can prey upon them. And that's what drove me to law
Hmm.
enforcement. And then later into training.
Yeah.
So,
I uh I have to admit that when I was, and this is not a shock to anybody, that when, like most kids, when I was a teenager, I was a fucking idiot. There was a time when I thought anarchy was the solution for everything. That was a great way because the government seemed corrupt, and that if we had no government, that somehow that would be better. And I had one teacher in particular, who was he was really intelligent and well spoken, and I had him for a couple different classes, and he was one of the teachers that I respected quite a bit. And like he kind of cornered me one day. He said, "So, what is all that about?" And I kind of gave my little thing on it. And he's like, "So, do you understand that what that means, though, right?" And he broke it down in a way that made a completely different type of sense to me, so that I understood that this is. I knew that, like in my own heart, that I didn't really think that that was the solution. I was just being rebellious and stupid, right? But to have it explained to me in a light, is like what that means is that there is absolutely no law, no anything, right? It's everything. Everything's up for grabs, and the strongest will, overpower everybody else. Um, Once I kind of put it into that context and thought about it a little bit, it's like I stopped that whole idea. And when I was 17, I actually joined the army.
oh,
So, I mean, I did a
totally
complete
did it.
turn,
Yeah.
about like where my head was, and what the reality of how things should be, and doing things that are right versus things that just seem like fun for the moment.
I like that you keyed in on that. Something I
Yeah.
like to say is just do what's right.
Hmm.
Like I tell new cops, do the right thing. There's policy, there's laws. I don't like the term law enforcement officer.
Hmm.
I'm not there to enforce laws. I'm there to provide a consequence for a decision, but more importantly, I'm there to maintain peace. I like peacekeeper,
Right.
peacekeeping. Like, hey, what can we do to resolve the situation that works in everybody's favor? What's the right thing to do? If that does mean going to jail and facing the consequence for a decision,
Hmm.
then you have to go do that. That's just you made the decision, you did the act. I'm just the consequence.
Right.
But if the solution is I can give you a ride somewhere to get some help, I'm going to do that.
Hmm.
If I can, a lot of people will accept it. Same token, a lot of people will be like, I don't want your help. Still offer it either way because
Right.
I think the idea is just doing the right thing. What would my community want in this scenario? What do they expect of me to do? And how do I best fulfill that while still maintaining my oath?
Hmm.
So I like that you hit on.
Yeah.
Just do the right thing.
Right.
It's easier said than done for some.
Yeah, it is. But I think that it's important for people to have that, just like you're saying, to make that distinction for themselves and understand that there is a whole list of laws and rules and things that we're all supposed to follow all the time. Okay. And you do that to the best of your ability, but sometimes, you just need to get shit done. And I'm not saying that you violate laws or that you break laws, not that kind of thing. I'm just saying that, like, you don't always have to adhere to everything to the letter
Right.
if
Letter of the
there's a better way to be doing it, you
letter of
know?
the law versus spirit of the law.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the lesson is learned
Hmm.
in through the experience and not through the consequence. Um, I was a young kid who did some. I got in foot pursuit with Chandler police. They chased me through a neighborhood, didn't catch me. Mesa PD honed me out, 6 patrol cars in an air unit. I got into, I've been in a lot of street fights and I've been stabbed. I've been cut with a machete. I've been shot at, and I had lots of broken teeth.
Okay.
Um, but I became a cop.
Yeah.
And so the important thing to remember is what's the right thing to do.
Hmm.
And I had some good officers do the right thing,
Hmm.
point you in the right direction. You should go do that. You should putting into this. Your energy should go here.
Right.
Join this. So I did archery club. Um, I got into martial arts heavily. Started fighting. My picture was in the newspaper in 1996 for doing martial arts outside of Chandler Gilbert Community College and running an organization that did sparring matches on Saturdays. So
Nice.
back when the internet was fledgling, they pre Google. So dating myself, right? You know,
Right.
obviously the white hair, but um, using bulletin board systems to organize different styles, different practitioners of martial arts to get together
Hmm.
and share ideas, and then to work through that through sparring.
Right.
There's a scene in the Matrix which I like. I don't remember which one it was. They all kind of blend together, but he goes, "You don't really truly know somebody until you fight them."
Okay.
And so sparring people is how you really get. Was it the second one? So when you spar with somebody or you fight,
Hmm.
not like trying to kill each other, but you spar and you're exchanging ideas. Like, hey, your system's cool. I really like Aikido, or your system's cool. I like, jujitsu, or I like judo, or I like Aikido. Any of those, and you
Hmm.
start to realize that really just boils down to one human being against another human being. There's only a handful of ways you can truly hurt me. Let's understand that together, and how do we better protect ourselves when
Hmm.
somebody does want to inflict their will upon us without our permission.
Right. So
So
I was just thinking about something as far as like the martial arts training that you've had, which seems like it was pretty extensive, to go from to take that into law enforcement. There's like a I don't know if this is the correct term or not. It's sort of like a continuum of force, of like what you can and can't do. The first reaction is not always to draw a gun. It's not always to go to the extreme of like, you know, uh, lethal force,
right.
right? So how often do you apply like the martial art part of it versus like what a normal officer would be that is untrained in those sorts of things?
That's actually a really good point. A good concept to talk about is police academies do a horrible job preparing somebody who's never been in a fist fight for being in a fist fight.
Hmm.
And so that panic factor of um, I need to go to a tool on my belt rather can I just solve this with my hands? And you see it in over reliance on tasers.
Hmm.
My experience with taser is 60% of the time it works 40% of the time. So it's like never like I've never it if it does work, it's temporary or it's on someone who's not truly combative as much. At
Hmm.
least this is anecdotal. I'm sure there's cases where guys get tased and it completely solves the situation. But the scenarios I've been involved with, the situations I've been involved with, doesn't really work. Case in point, 6'7" Polynesian goes to a Circle K and slaps the teeth out of a customer in the parking lot. I say that because it is funny. Like I feel sorry for the guy, but they got an argument over a parking spot, and this guy was high and drunk on meth and alcohol.
Hmm.
And his response to, well, hey man, that was going to be my parking spot, was to slap the guy so hard he knocked teeth into the parking lot. So he slapped the teeth out of this guy. Two officers showed up because they were going there unrelated and saw it happen.
Right.
They tried to tase the guy. He basically grabbed the taser where and says, "Fuck your taser. What are you going to do now?"
Yeah.
So they call out "Hey, I need help like now." I
Uh-huh.
happened to be at the intersection at the stoplight when the call came out. As I pulled in, this the strangest sight I've ever seen. I don't think I'll ever see it again. This guy, I'm pulling in. It's nighttime. My headlights are going into the parking lot, and there is this monster of a human being carrying 2 cops on his shoulders, walking through the parking lot, and they are wailing on him to no end.
Right.
And there was a pause, like, okay, is this real? I've never like what's happened, what is going on? Like, I've never seen anybody just pick up 2 cops and start
Right.
carrying them to like nothing.
Uh-huh.
And that turned into a knockdown, drag out fight that led to unconsciousness and then guy getting put in custody. Funny thing about that though is after he came back to consciousness,
Uh-huh.
um, I won't get into details how he got unconscious, but after he regained consciousness,
Uh-huh.
he was the nicest person I've ever met. He comes
Right.
to, officer, hi, what's going on? Oh, did I do something? Oh, what's happening? Why am I in handcuffs?
Yeah.
Are you the same monster who's just walking through this part? Who are you? Um, strangest thing. Sorry to go off on that,
Yeah, no, that's
on
great.
that tangent. But back to the point, like I wish logistically you can't teach somebody 20 years of martial arts experience in a 6 month police academy.
Right.
But having that hands on, like knowing that, yeah, you're gonna punch me. Is it really gonna hurt?
Hmm.
Like what kind of punch hurts versus what kind is just like a pawing at somebody, like, and so then you're not so amped up that, oh man, this guy's getting aggressive. Okay, well, he wants to do the man dance. We're going to do the man dance. This is what's going to
Hmm.
happen. Somebody cue the music.
Yeah.
Get the playlist rolling in your head. Let the bodies hit
To
the
the floor,
floor.
exactly. It's just what I was thinking.
Music goes off. Like, okay, I've done this before. Um, as long as he's not armed with a knife or a weapon. If he just let's okay, bro, we're gonna fight. What the
Right.
end result is, I will eventually. If you end up kicking my ass, I've got like 16 dudes that are coming. Like
Right.
the end result is the end result, but
Yeah.
like you don't have to get yourself so wound so tight that you make those mistake of fact errors and draw a
Hmm.
gun instead of a taser,
Right.
shoot somebody who doesn't need to be shot.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I do think that having there's a quote, and I'm not sure exactly where it comes from. I've heard it over the years in several different training circles. But the reality is, the higher trained an individual is, the less likely they are to actually have to use their skills,
Hmm.
um, and that ends up falling into recognizing pre-attack indicators, having a higher level of situational awareness
Hmm.
for things that matter,
Hmm.
uh, positioning, putting somebody in positions of disadvantage, seeing body language or cue indicators of somebody might be agitating themselves or looking for an escape route. And so then just cutting it off early, just through
Hmm.
maybe taking a step to cut off that avenue of escape and then redirecting somebody to talk to you
Hmm.
so that they're not thinking, you can't actively talk and do something at the same time, like do a tactical. You can't
Right.
talk and shoot at the same time. You can't talk and punch at the same time. It's one or the other, but
Right.
putting those higher skill sets into effect generally reduces the amount of time, for those who aren't truly dedicated or have decided, I'm just going to fight my way out of this. Um, and even then, most of the time, guys that want to fight are trying to get away.
Hmm.
They're really not, I'm going to fight and kill you. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get away from you.
Right.
And I tell a lot of new guys, they're like, look, it's going to be an eye opening. I count on one hand the number of times over 18 years that there have been suspects that have wanted to hurt me versus just fight me to get away. Now I might
Hmm.
get hurt in the process, but that's a different story of
Right.
like, I'm sizing you up, badge and gun, be damned. It's like, what can I do to you to hurt you? If
Hmm.
whether I get away or not is irrelevant to me. My goal is to hurt you.
Right.
Um, those are rare.
Hmm.
More often is it's the fight to get away.
Hmm.
Sure, they're punching you. They might be doing something to hurt you, but it's not the same mindset. It's not the same visceral feeling of when somebody's trying to hurt you versus
Hmm.
someone's just trying to get away from the cops
Right.
or escape from you.
Hmm.
But I do think that background gives me a little bit more peace of mind when dealing with people, and so that I haven't had to go code black, like they say.
Right. Yeah, because sometimes I'll be watching the police videos of how they react to situations and like at just kind of the first sign of like stress, they're reaching for that, and that obviously is not the best way always to solve that issue. I think that, and I don't know how much of this is done like in normal police academies and things like that. The whole idea of de-escalation, of like being able to talk to somebody. And I fully agree that like people who have had previous experience with martial arts or fighting and that sort of thing, they're better able to approach those situations more calmly because it's not that big a deal. It's like, okay, if we're gonna fight, we're gonna fight, and it is what it is, right? You just kind of know that, right? Versus somebody who's never been in a fight and they're so terrified of that idea that they're willing to like go again to something extreme to try to avoid even that minimal exposure to it.
Yeah, it's
You know?
funny you meant, or not funny. It's interesting that you point out that there's the tendency to go for the gun for compliance.
Hmm.
And I like to tell people, don't bluff with your gun.
Yeah.
If you point your gun at somebody and order him to sit down, and he doesn't, you can't just shoot him for not sitting down.
Right.
So why are you pulling your gun out? Because now you have to go hands on and reholster that
Hmm.
in a situation that's already stressful enough that you thought you should pull your gun out and point it
Hmm.
at somebody. Um, I don't like bluffing with things
Yeah.
that you can't do. Like your bluff, to me, a bluff is more of in the law enforcement or in the police world is just a way to throw you off on your
Hmm.
planning. Like, yeah, I've got four guys behind this door that are ready to come in if you don't calm yourself down.
Right.
When in reality, my backup's like 6 minutes away. But you don't know that.
Right.
That's an appropriate bluff.
Right.
Um, Me pulling my gun out and ordering you to sit down when you
Hmm.
have no lethal threat, that's a bluff that I can't use. That's not, and a lot of gamers, guys have been in and out of prison, right? You guys, I understand corrections, right?
Yes, we
Both.
both work for corrections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know the phrase, game. He's a gamer. He knows he's been in and out of the system. He knows what we can and cannot do.
Hmm.
He knows you can't shoot him for for not sitting down,
Right.
and he also can start seeing how scared you are
Hmm.
because guess what? Body language is a two-way street.
Yeah.
And confidence, back to that whole confidence thing, speaks volumes.
Hmm.
Somebody carries himself confidently, somebody that moves confidently, acts like they know what they're doing, looks like they have their shit together, versus somebody who's, I don't care how much time you have on,
Hmm.
looks like a shit show.
Right.
You, there's predator and prey. We have forward facing vision.
Right.
We're sizing each other up all the time.
Hmm.
And in the street or in a random encounter, we're doing the exact same thing. I'm sizing up this person as he's approaching me as I'm walking to my car at night.
Hmm.
Why is he walking at me? What's he doing? What am I going to do to reveal his intents before he gets to me? If
Hmm.
I'm on the street, okay, this guy, I have to contact him because it's a DV situation or something, and
Hmm.
I need to find out what's going on. Or maybe he's the suspect, and I already have established probable cause, and now he's not free to go. But do I just run up and railroad this guy? What's this?
Yeah.
The the greatest skill I think is talking somebody into a pair of handcuffs, because eventually you can eventually beat anybody into a pair of handcuffs,
Right.
but the likelihood of getting injured on both sides goes up.
Hmm.
And if I could talk somebody into handcuffs, I'd rather talk you into handcuffs. I mean, I'm a big guy, so it's easy for me to say I'll just beat you into handcuffs. Well, what's the point? Like, if I
Right.
can just say, hey man, this is what's it's gonna happen.
Hmm.
You're going to jail.
Right.
This is it. Like, we're not. This isn't the place for discussion at this point. You can
Yeah.
argue in court later. You can meet with your attorney, but
Hmm.
as of right now, the situation is you're going to jail.
Right.
Stand up, put your hands behind your back.
Yeah.
Okay, it's either on or it's not. It's
Right.
he can get mouthy. He can contest all you want verbally. Let the
Hmm.
stress out. I'm okay with that. Um, but let me know. I just let you know what's going to happen. So now you're going to let me know what the next steps are,
Right.
because I'm just a mirror. I'm a
Yeah.
reflection. If you're cool, I'm cool.
Hmm.
And if you don't want to be cool, well, I can.
We could not be cool.
We cannot be cool.
Right. Um, we have situations like that in obviously in prison, working with the inmates. Um, to varying degrees, like having interactions with them. And a lot of that, at least for us, because we're dealing with these guys all day, every day, we have built or established some kind of rapport, positive or negative, or whatever that is, but we have some understanding of who this person is and what we're dealing with, which is a benefit for us. And why I think that our job is less stressful in some regards than officers that are on the street because they're dealing with 100% unknown. They don't know who this person is, what they're capable of, right?
It's true.
Um, but one of the things that we do learn to develop over time is like, again, building that rapport and then having those conversations and being able to de-escalate somebody. But occasionally you do get to that thing where somebody says, I'm not going to do that. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, whether you like it or not,
It's going to happen.
it's going to happen because if it takes six more guys to show up to make it happen, it's still going to,
Just let it happen, bro.
so it's like, let's just kind of go with this. We don't have to make this a big thing. Let's just deal with the situation, and it is what it is, right?
Right.
So, again, being good at like communicating, I think that's a huge thing, is being able to actually talk to somebody in a way that where you're not projecting yourself as an asshole or
Or
as an aggressor.
condescending.
Yeah. So that you're actually elevating that person's, you know, reaction that in itself is a very valuable thing.
Right. One of the easiest ways to, I don't know, quote unquote, de-escalate or at least establish a baseline of behavior
Hmm.
is respect the other person's humanity.
Hmm.
Like I don't have to respect the crime that you're doing. Like, don't get me wrong. I not too long ago just was involved in a child sex rape case where we arrested the suspect. I got
Hmm.
no respect for the guy,
Right.
right? But when you're dealing with a suspect who's on a unknown contact, right? I respect your humanity.
Hmm.
This contact has to happen in some context.
Yeah.
Let's make it as least violent as necessary.
Hmm.
Um, we can have this conversation and move on. We can have this conversation and move on.
Hmm.
If it turns into something where rules have to be abided by, rules have to be abided by, man. Let's just be men about this.
Right.
Let's and then despite all that, if you still want to choose the path of because some people just want to see the world burn, and that's just the
Yeah.
way it is. Like there's no rationalizing with somebody who cannot rationalize. Then
Hmm.
okay, then all my training and all my experience, all everything I've done preparatory to this is going to make sure that I win this scenario safely for me and those involved in the community around us.
Right.
And that's the important part too. The community around us is a lot of times that's not considered in the context of the one-on-one confrontation.
Right.
But every errant round has a name on it,
Yes.
so you got to be accountable for every shooting at the speed of panic is not a course of action.
Correct.
Like eh, so, in that context, what am I going to do? My driving, I'm
Hmm.
chasing somebody in a community that I know is a lot of kids playing out at 5 in the afternoon because it's
Hmm.
after school. I still have to take into consideration what's the context of our one-on-one confrontation is not exclusive. It's not in a bubble. The whole world is around us
It's
as
not a
this is
TV
going on.
movie
Right.
where they're driving like just balls out through streets and nobody's ever out on the sidewalk.
Mm.
You
No,
know.
it's I've been involved in a few pursuits and it is absolutely chaos hoping that he doesn't hit somebody and kill him
Right.
before you can get there and stop him
Hmm.
with the a vehicle whatever however you're going to stop him. Um, but that is this is the big concern is the community means more
Hmm.
because they asked us to go do this, so we got to
Right.
do it right by them.
So that kind of gets into a whole other thing of situational awareness. Okay, kind of on two fronts there. Now, so like there's the situational awareness of an average citizen going through their day, of stop looking at your phone and pay attention to what's going on around you. But on the law enforcement side of like understanding that whatever interactions you're having, it's affecting more than just like there are other things that can kind of come into play there. So.
Was is so I, spatial awareness,
Hmm.
spatial tactical positioning. These are multi-syllabic words. Make it monosyllabic
Right.
as possible. Putting yourself in the right place for the right moments
Hmm.
is a trainable skill. So one of the ways I address this in some of my training classes is through scenario-based training, but without you don't need a lot of actors for that.
Hmm.
So I'll set up a room. There's a post I did, you saw it. I have like a 8 by 11 sheet of paper. It says man, gun, angry, child, cell phone, laughing, woman, purse, agitated. And then I'll put on a person the sign that says man, gun, angry. Um, and you walk into or man, angry, cell phone. So you're going for police side of it, it's you're going to a call, just agitated person, but you don't have any information if there's a weapon involved or not.
Right.
So the trainable skill is, and the performance objective, and as well as the observational, um, the um, the observer's notes is when the person walks in, they scan the room. So you have to read each one of these. You have
Hmm.
to read each person. After same part of the brain is being activated.
Right.
So child cell phone, man angry, agitated, woman, knife. Okay, that's different. So maybe a couple objects in the room, or maybe not. Where the key to observe for them is you teach them about positioning
Hmm.
and backdrop. So if this had to turn into something where you have to ballistically de-escalate somebody, you don't want your backdrop to be bad. Well, you can consider that
Right.
through the training. And well, the training scenario ends when the person's put themselves in the proper position. Never has to escalate to actually using anything, because the part that you're evaluating, the part that you're training and studying is, are they reading appropriately what needs to be read, and then
Hmm.
moving themselves while engaging with somebody in case it did escalate.
Hmm.
So I'm putting, let's say you're the actor, so you have one human interactor who's angry, agitated. Everybody in the background I have to pay attention to. So I sidestep to where I have nothing behind you, none of those signs.
Hmm.
Scenario over. Yeah, why'd you move to that position? Well, if you decided to go for a knife or gun, I have this distance or this obstacle, but if I had to shoot, I put everybody that was in the background, because you have to pay
Hmm.
attention to that,
Right.
out of my way. Now, you can change the scenario from the PD side of it to your um, coming home, or you're going to a park, and
Hmm.
same scenario, man, agitated knife out of nowhere. There's a guy at a park just angry, you're having a birthday party.
Hmm.
Kid, mom, stroller. Position yourself, put a park table in the middle. Now you have to walk. What does that park table give you? Obstacle for him to overcome,
Hmm.
both physically and mentally. Just
Hmm.
put, I firmly believe like the reason we have a lot of road rage incidents is because there's that physical barrier between us and the cars.
Hmm.
Whereas if we were standing in line at the customer service at Walmart, you wouldn't say those things to me.
Right.
So you create that physical barrier, creates a mental barrier, creates a little bit of de-escalation, gives you an opportunity to maneuver and make a decision to either reveal their intent or pull yourself to a better position.
Hmm.
So that type of tactical decision making is a trainable skill, and knowing that you can put, like, a lot of times, like, well, how do I train for people in the background? Like, how would I perform? Well, there you go. You don't. And what do you need? A couple of 8.5 sheets by paper, a good evaluator, a good lesson on positioning beforehand, a good understanding, some dry runs on practicing, and then here, let's go into a couple of scenarios, swap some things around, make it harder, make it easier, but force the brain to start problem solving. So all we did was train tactical problem solving, positioning,
Hmm.
with no weapons, no knives, but all of the brain forethought that's necessary to successfully navigate that in real life.
Hmm.
So yeah, taking aware of your 360-degree world
Right.
matters.
So another thing that I kind of pulled from the website was the idea that there's plenty of high speed, low drag training, which I love that phrase, where people learn really tactical things, door kicking, SWAT type maneuvers like clearing buildings, that sort of thing, which is fantastic. And I would never discourage people from learning those
Right.
sorts of things. But as you point out, that's not an everyday thing. Most people throughout the course of their lives are not going to be called to a situation where they have to put that to actual use. So, it's a lot of the training and things that you do is a little more on like what they are more likely to encounter.
So that ties directly into, so the EDC core curriculum is what I call it. So um, right before I get into that, you're right. So when I first started this, a lot of my peers were like, "We should just make this PD only. You've taught the vehicle classes. You do this. Why don't you just teach nothing but these classes?" Okay, cool. What about the normal guy? What
Right.
about the average responsible citizen who needs to take care? The BFTM group drove that philosophy into the STS group, on just because it was average people. It wasn't, a group of my peers who,
Hmm.
we trained five, when I was in the specialty unit, we trained together weekly. We run operations together. We know how to, we had the time and resources to delve into building entries, rescues, and takeoffs, and which are cool skills that I encourage. This is America. Everybody should be able to learn whatever you want to learn. Like
Right.
when the ATF canceled UTMs, I'm like, oh, that's just an agency that needs to go away. Can we get rid of them already?
Right.
Like, bye bye. No, so they definitely don't want citizens training, which is just atrocious. I think the better trained, you have more trained, aware, armed citizens, the safer your place is going to be, hands down. It's
Right.
just going to be that way. So I went into uh, developing, taking a lot of my experiences, anecdotal, and a lot of training classes, and a lot of delving into performance athletics and neuro athletics kind of topics. That's what I ended up reading, a book called, like, how great coaches, coaching mental excellence. You
Hmm.
know, so that drove me into the athletic side of it. Then I found Joan Vickers, A Quiet Eye, Force Science, Human Performance Factors, and I started looking at, well, from a curriculum point of view, I came up with the EDC core curriculum. Um, Everyday carry, critical operator readiness.
Hmm.
Everyday carry, everybody knows that phrase. It's in the industry, in the community, in the firearms world, in the preparation world. Everybody knows that EDC. EDC. It's just the skills and the gear that I carry every day for any situation that I might realistically encounter for that day.
Hmm.
And I like that because it doesn't mean I'm tacked out with a ballistic helmet, night vision goggles, a vest, a battle belt, and I'm going to the grocery store.
Right.
We're not at that point yet,
Yeah.
and hopefully we won't ever be, because the fantasy of rolling around in armed troves to go grocery shopping is not a very nice reality.
No, not really.
that's just, yeah. Anyways, um, so EDCs, everyday care. Just what am I carrying on me, um, both mentally and gear wise? Because
Hmm.
the mind is the ultimate weapon. The gear just supports your
Hmm.
objective. It doesn't drive your objective. And then critical operator readiness. So I like the word core because it's central, it's fundamental.
Hmm.
There's a good quote out there by a guy named Matt Thornton. It says fundamentals aren't defined as what's most basic, but as what's most necessary. And
Okay.
that struck a chord with me. He's a jujitsu guy, and I was like, it makes perfect sense. What isn't? It's not the most basic thing. Like fundamental skills aren't just basic; they're what's most necessary.
Hmm.
If I can't draw my gun and hit a target uh, under my control, just standing still against something that's not moving or trying to kill me, I'm not going to be able to do it when another human being who's as cunning as I am, who doesn't want to get shot like me, and is trying to intently kill me. I need to be able to have those skills on demand. So, four, fundamental, the mastery of those. And mastery is a journey, not a destination. That's a different story.
Hmm.
But
Right.
proficiency in your core skill sets related to personal security. And then I broke core down into an acronym because acronyms are cool. Critical. So critical just means a decisive moment before something can go either direction.
Hmm.
So we can think of critical stress incident when a nuclear power plant goes critical, or it's at the precipice. The next thing you do determines where this incident goes. So
Hmm.
critical, utmost importance. Like this is now happening. We need to address it.
Hmm.
Operator. All right, everybody loves the word operator. Um,
But you got to say it like operator.
operator. So when I do is a critical operator readiness
Nice.
finisher. Um, operator. So everybody like operate. It goes down to you're your own personal security. You're agent of your own personal security detail.
Right.
You're in charge of your person. You're your first responder. You're gonna operate your plan, your gear, your equipment. You're
Hmm.
the operator.
Right.
Um, it gets that, and that's all it is. You just operate the piece of equipment. So in the EDC core world, it's me, my family, me, my friends, me, my kids. What am I doing? I'm in charge. I'm operating this. We're going to the grocery store. We're going on a family trip. We're going on a road trip. Have I checked all my boxes for this trip?
Hmm.
Extra, spare tire, flat tire, fix a kit, first aid kits, tourniquets, food, water.
Right.
I'm the operator. I'm in charge. And then readiness. Be ready, so you don't have to get ready.
Right.
And put all that together. And the whole philosophy behind it is what skill sets, what training, what um what is the how do I make somebody who's not an armed professional, like they're not paid to go and solve society's ills, um they're going, but they recognize that the police can't get there fast enough, that there's no third party minority report pre-crime stop bad things before they happen entity out there.
Hmm.
So part of understanding that personal security is a personal responsibility.
Hmm.
What can I do with my limited resources, time, um, ability,
Hmm.
prepare myself? EDC core comes in for that. The whole guiding principle is I'm not an armed professional. I'm not a trained, like I'm not working with 5, 6 dudes, and we're not rolling in a Bearcat with armored vehicle or
Right.
a personal security vehicle with bulletproof glass and doors and no never flat tires just to go to the grocery store. I'm going to the grocery store. How do I recognize threats? Because the most important thing you have to be able to do is recognize a threat before you can react to a threat.
Hmm.
And where people get caught up, and you see this in security videos, in real life incidents, when I'm responding to calls, I didn't see it coming.
Right.
I didn't think that could happen to me.
Hmm.
I had no idea. I don't know what happened.
Hmm.
Well, that's a failure up to that point of paying attention to what's going on around you. I like to call it active situational awareness
Hmm.
because it's proactively making decisions, not just keep your head on a swivel, watch your six, pay attention. What does that mean? What am I looking for?
Right.
Like when someone says, keep your head on a swivel, the hell am I looking for, bro? Like I'm on a swivel, but I'm dizzy now. Like,
Right.
what was I supposed to be looking for? Because they're not always Hollywood identifiable bad guys.
Right.
Like they look like the Hollywood identifiable bag. That's not how they look most of the time. It it could be just somebody looks normal for that area.
Hmm.
What's your baseline heuristic for that area, that region? Understanding where you are is another key element of EDC core. We talk about is always know where you're going, always have a plan of escape.
Right.
Some key elements that I've posted over the years and guidelines or whatnot, which I borrowed heavily from a group I was a part of called the Moat Group.
Okay.
They got a whole list of 19 guidelines, but and that's just or guidelines that work really good for plainclothes operations.
Hmm.
So you take those EDC core, and that's what drives everything that I do, training wise. All of my fundamental classes, everything is conflict centered for starters.
Hmm.
So from my very basic pistol class to my CCW class, we do drills. We do, even if it's a non-live fire class, we were doing things to build the right part of the cognitive problem solving brain centers
Hmm.
that you can apply later on. And whether that's a drill in decision making in my CCW class with present multiple decisions to two decisions to timed understanding the relationship of time and distance and um, how much little time is and what a realistic ballistic expectations you should have. With one of my the portion at the end of my CCW class talks about handgun ballistics. Uh, I added that in later on after I was dealing with that because people didn't have a realistic expectation of what a handgun does to a human body.
Hmm.
So I've got a couple videos in there and understanding the way bullets stop threats, the four recognized ways,
Hmm.
and then building those skill sets through live fire. Now we're doing fundamental marksmanship and then applying that to conflict centered, contextually correct scenarios.
Right.
So I'm not a big fan of sterile, static line drills
Hmm.
um, against a benign target. Just there's it's not. I like. I just did a CC. I call fighting from CCW class
Hmm.
in over the summer, and it's a lot of moving. It's a lot of making decisions on where to go. It's a lot of being accountable for your rounds.
Hmm.
One-handed shooting. A lot of shooting in real life happens one-handed,
Right.
and a lot of that is because you want to point or
Hmm.
we're moving something. But very few people practice one-handed shooting skills.
Right.
It's very underrated, underutilized skill set. Red dot occluded optic. I'm big on maintaining that threat focus. And
Hmm.
so all the way up to my vehicle counter ambush slash CQC class I just did is you're walking up to your car and somebody's approaching you. Let's talk about angles, movement, and then if it devolves into a lethal force encounter, then how do
Hmm.
we solve that appropriately with what we have? Because it's going to be a bad situation anyways when you're being ambushed.
Right.
So
Yeah. So the last class that where I met you
yeah,
when we were here, you were using, I don't know what they're called, but they're like little lights that they
we
use for like for
Blaze Pods is the company that makes them.
okay.
Um, so prior to me using Blaze Pods, I was using flags,
Hmm.
like penalty flags.
Right.
And how I would use that is so you have to take time to react to start. You have
Hmm.
to take time to react to finish. So I don't like known round count drills because you who's counting? I'm shooting
Until
it either changes shape or catches fire. That's where that's what I'm shooting for. And I'm the
yes.
only reason I'm shooting is because if I don't shoot, then I'm going to die. So my threshold for when I'm using justifiable lethal force in a society ruled by laws is that person. If I don't stop them right now from doing whatever it is they're going to do, I'm going to die. So I have to stop them. The quickest way to stop bad guys, shoot them in the face
Hmm.
until they change shape or catch fire. And if they
Okay.
do catch fire, I don't know. I have a cool story. Uh, so I use flags. So I would throw a flag. That's the cue to start shooting. The
Uh-huh.
cue to stop shooting is a different colored flag.
Hmm.
A different colored flag for a different. Hey, now you're going to lateral to this position, lateral. So what I'm doing is I'm playing on the parts of the brain that should be subconsciously running the shooting program.
Hmm.
The shooting program should be, I don't have to think about it. Draw, point, shoot. Grip a gun, point a gun, pull the trigger. As Bruce Lee once said, any idiot can do it.
Yeah.
The complex part is reading what's going on, understanding my environment, and making decisions that force the other guy into a disadvantage.
Hmm.
Lateral movement or movement in general is an advantage, but movement with a purpose is way better. So how do we
Right.
train? Training maneuvering in the sense of it's just not just me running, it's me running because I've made a decision to get to a better position, or it forces you. Conversely, if I run one direction and I can see that there's an obstacle you can't see, pony wall, and I want to force you to run with me, you're going to trip over that pony wall because you can't see it. You're looking at
Right.
me.
Right.
But that's maneuvering. I'm taking advantage of my 3D world and understanding what's going on because
Hmm.
I don't have to think about the shooting skills. The shooting skills are the natural skills. Um, so the flags would indicate that. So it's a visual side, and then it was even if the flag gets thrown while you're doing a reload, if it's not thrown, still continue to engage. And what you see a lot is it takes time to start, it takes time to stop. When the visual stimulus to start shooting occurs, people have the normal reaction.
Hmm.
And vision is one of our slower reaction things, anyways, because we talk about sight, touch, and sound.
Hmm.
Vision's kind of the slowest because we don't see with our eyes like video cameras. Our eyes are just portals to our brain. The brain is what sees. The eye just is kind of our perceptive filter
Hmm.
for bringing in different types of light and light waves, which is why it's so easy to trick the eyes with these visual games that I put up on my Instagram. But what you'll see is if guys have had a lot of training on doing drills where they draw, fire, reload, and fire two,
Hmm.
very common drills, just two after you do a reload. I'll start the stimuli. They'll draw, they'll shoot, they'll get to the reload because I'll run them dry or halfway through another drill, so they only have like 6 or 7 rounds in there anyways. And when counting, so you guarantee every shot, and you don't know when the stop signal is coming because I don't know how many rounds it's going to take to drop another human being.
Right.
I've seen, in my ballistics class, I got videos where guys are sucking up 12 rounds before they stop. So you just shooting
Yeah.
and shooting. And I'll show you that after the class,
Okay.
or after or talk here. But so I'll do that, and invariably, a lot of guys that have a lot of formal training where it's known round count drills, and you're doing the hey reload, draw, fire two, and you're done. They'll do their reload, they'll punch out, fire two, and they'll come back. And I have to get on them like, did the signal to stop shooting come through? Did you see anything that tells you to stop shooting? Oh, go back out because
Right.
we train ourselves on a habit of doing something, and the brain doesn't care if it's a good or bad habit. It just does what it's most easy, what's most comfortable and easier to do. So
Hmm.
I've taken the flag concept, and then this company makes these. They're from athletics, for performance athletics, and that's being involved in that world as far as like mental performance athletics and how to turn it into skill development is what introduced me to the product. And what's great about the product is programmable. It's on time. I can multiple different color lights.
Hmm.
So what I'll do is I'll set them up, and now you're reacting to a photorealistic target and a visual stimuli that's asking you to do something.
Hmm.
And a good way to understand that is it's not a simple visual stimuli. You want to kind of avoid staying into simple visual stimuli. And I do this demo in that class. I set up the lights, and so everybody
Hmm.
has to come up and touch the lights. So they're touched lights too.
Right.
And I'll do the simple visual stimuli where it's just one light. Everybody's super fast with that. Like one light, and then the others are different colors. So I'm like, only tap the blue one, and
Hmm.
you'll get 4 different colors, but one of them will be blue. Everybody's like 300 milliseconds, 400 milliseconds, because it also measures the time for
Nice.
reaction, which is cool. Then I'll do a drill that requires you to make motor program selection under the time constraint. So it'll be 3 colors like red, green, and blue. And so green will be you tap it with your right hand, red is you tap it with your left hand, and blue is you clap before you tap it. All the wheels fall off. Train
Yeah.
goes right off the track. Everybody fumbles that one
Hmm.
because now you're trying to react before the light goes away because there's a timer on
Hmm.
and you want to get a fast reaction time. But now what I'm actually doing is pick a motor program based on a visual stimuli that's not
Hmm.
just a simple stimuli. And that's what I try to translate into the way I do my firearm drills, my
Right.
training drills is, oh, excuse me, interleaved training is probably one of the best ways to build skill for long-term retention.
Hmm.
So you add that little bit of chaos into the application of the skill,
Hmm.
it ends up being better than like a block and silo. Just you go out to a training and you spend all day shooting a bill drill. Well, yeah, by the end of the day, your bill drill is real good. 3 weeks later, your bill drill, if you haven't been working on it, probably is going to be like it was at the beginning of the class.
Right.
Force Science does a lot of studies on this. Block and silo training results in very poor skill retention after time. We're interleaved because you're applying the skill to context You're relying on your ability to build heuristics and pattern recognitions, build schemas for applying. Now just pick up on cues on the problem. Everything else runs in the background, kind of like subroutines,
Hmm.
and your retention of that skill is longer. Now you still have to maintain practicing in between. Like there's still such a thing as deliberate practice,
Right.
but deliberate practice in and of itself isn't sufficient enough to build true proficiency in a skill. The example I like to use for that is if I put a bucket over here on the ground and I give you a mister from, like a outdoor mister,
Hmm.
and I tell you, fill that bucket up with that mister. Eventually that bucket will be filled, right?
Right.
But you and I both know there's a more efficient way to fill that
Yeah.
bucket with water. So just throwing rounds at a problem,
Hmm.
okay, you just need to shoot 1,000 rounds a day. Eventually, you'll fill that bucket up over time, but there's
Right.
more efficient ways to fill that bucket up
Hmm.
with the same amount of water.
Right.
So that's the training philosophy that guides the EDC core curriculum, and it is 100% focused on the person just going about their daily job.
Right.
Just I'm going to the grocery store. I don't want to get robbed in the parking lot. I'm going to the gas station. I don't want to get killed for my credit card. I'm going to the movie theaters. I'm going to on a family vacation. I'm going on a road trip.
Hmm.
I'm in my house. I hear a bump in the night.
Hmm.
That's the whole guiding philosophy, and will continue to be the guiding philosophy for Saguaro Training and Solutions Group. Eventually, yeah, maybe I might do some more higher end specialized like LE only or that type of classes. But
Hmm.
for now, the I get a lot of joy in teaching good people how to protect themselves.
Right.
And that means a lot to me. So
Yeah. So in the typical class that you have, like what percentage would you say is actually females to males?
I've uh, I've only had like well, in my CCW class, it's almost even. In my
Okay.
classroom only. In the
Hmm.
hard skills class, it's almost always guys. Every now and then I'll get one or
Hmm.
two um, women.
Hmm.
I did have an all women's, not by design. It
Hmm.
just turned out everybody that signed up for it was female.
Right.
Pistol basic class a little bit ago, and yeah, it was all. So it varies. Mostly it's guys.
Yeah.
Um, that's to be expected. Most men naturally assume it's their responsibility to be the protector provider,
Right.
and those that are looking to improve those skill sets will do their research or see something. A lot of
Hmm.
times it's word of mouth. Like a lot of what drives my enrollments is word of mouth. Somebody would take a class and be like, "Yeah, that was a good class. I'm gonna go. You should go take it." And then people email me, "Hey, when's your next class?" And
Hmm.
my training schedule isn't super high tempo because I still work full time and sometimes I do overtime and short staffing issues and stuff like that. So schedule when and where I can um, on that on that to that end, I should say. And then when the classes do come, people do sign up.
Right.
It's just the way it works. I don't have retire in a little bit here. That's going to amp up because I have more free time
Right.
and no obligation. I'll fulfilled my oath, did my 20 years, and been done.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that's driving me to the end. I said, "Yep, I'm going to do this. 20 years is my obligation, and then my obligations are done. I can focus on other things."
Right.
So
Part of the reason why I asked that is because I'm always curious to find out like where the interest. I mean, obviously for men, it's just more of a natural thing that they just generally tend to be more interested in firearms and training and combatives, that sort of thing, where women aren't necessarily. Um, but I think that it's extremely important for them because in so many situations, not, I mean, this is across the board. It isn't because you're a man or woman. When a situation happens, you're it. You're your own
that's it.
first responder, right? So, if you're not prepared to deal with the situation, and especially in our society like now where there are so many like single mothers, okay, now you're responsible not just for you, but for your children, you know? So if you don't know how to take care of yourself, if you don't know how to have at least some kind of background in self-defense, how to use a firearm, create an action plan of like, if something does go sideways, what are we doing? How do we get out of this situation? How do I protect my kids? These are all incredibly important things. And I think that they need to become a bigger part of this community,
I agree,
because it's just as important for them as it is for everybody else. Men
100%.
naturally are the protectors. That's a given. Okay. But in the absence of men, they got to be able to stand up and do it, you know?
Well, that's
So,
that's something I really. Some a lot of my private lessons are women,
Hmm.
um, elderly, and single moms.
Hmm.
The women that have taken my other classes have either been in their early 20s, single mothers that bring their teenage daughters with them,
Right.
or what we call grandmas, older women,
Uh-huh.
elderly women, actually, not older women, elderly women. I don't have, other than my CCW, because I have not had a lot of married wives, like just they're a couple decide to come in.
Hmm.
And that may be just culturally, they assume, well, my husband's taking the class, so I don't have to show up.
Right.
But those that are alone,
Hmm.
they're single, young single women, single moms with teenage daughters, or elderly women that are widows,
Hmm.
is what I've had a lot of. And it's funny. That's not funny. It's interesting to note that.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe we need a cultural shift where, okay, yeah, I'm the guy, I'm the one supposed to protect and provide, but I'm not with my wife 24/7.
Hmm.
And maybe the wife needs to understand, well, my husband's not with me 24/7, or my partner.
Hmm.
2023, it could be anything. Um, is not with me all the time,
Right.
and I need to be able to protect myself so I can make a home to them at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And it's not that we're trying to say it's always the victim's fault if they can't protect themselves.
Right.
But there is a little bit of personal responsibility when you
Hmm.
understand that your security is 100% up to you.
Right.
I like saying safe is a feeling and doesn't have a meaning. Like, what's safe? You could feel safe and be in a completely insecure area
Right.
or unsecure area, but I feel safe. Gun-free zones. I feel safe in a gun-free zone. You're not in a safe environment, like a true secure
Right.
environment. So don't be safe, be dangerous.
Yeah.
So then you can take that with you everywhere you go. It doesn't matter what the environment is. You're that barrier, that provider of danger,
Hmm.
security for those around you.
Right.
Whether they feel safe or not, doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Some people will never feel safe because maybe we haven't evolved past the hamster mindset in that person. Not
Right.
a negative to them. They're just we need good, gentle people. There's not
Hmm.
everybody can go out and be a meat eater, Tyrannosaurus Rex, just chewing up everything in front of it, because that's just not the
Right.
way we're built as people. There's
Yeah.
takes all kinds.
Hmm.
But it's okay to harm the sheep too. And
Hmm.
if the sheep understands, you know what, dog's not always going to be there to protect me.
Hmm.
It's good if I have my own gun. Maybe I can stop the wolf
Right.
or buy myself enough time to escape the wolf is
Hmm.
equally as important.
Right.
Being able to delay and extricate is a win,
Yeah.
but it's still a win. And when you get to leave and make it home, you've won.
Hmm.
It's not always we're going to stand toe to toe and punch each other until we both get punch drunk.
Right.
At some point I have to make a tactical decision. Where's my avenue to stop this to get away? Like,
Yeah.
I need to eventually. We like to talk about, I'm going to shoot the guy until he catches fire and changes shape.
Yeah.
Sometimes it may be I've shot the guy enough. There's maybe more than one. I'm leaving.
Hmm.
I got to protect. I got kids with me, and I don't want my kids taking errant rounds.
Right.
There's a tragic story out of California years ago. Off-duty cop taking his kids Circle K. Two armed robbers come out. He's got a 5-shot revolver on him. He goes, I got to handle business. Goes to shoot at the bad guys. The bad guys shoot his kids. They flee. He
Wow.
runs out. He's got 5 rounds in his 5-shot revolver. Later on, they get caught, and they said, "Yeah, we shot at his kids because we were hoping it would stop him from shooting at us." Things you got to consider, right? Like,
Right.
sometimes just avoiding it altogether is the better
Yeah.
decision. You can be super high trained, but the day chooses you, and
Hmm.
your best. We win everything we can avoid. That includes extricating from,
Right.
and that's a win. So,
So, just on that note, how do you feel about people who use revolvers as their primary self-defense?
so this is gonna be a rabbit hole.
Okay.
The gun is the tool. The man is the weapon.
Right.
So, and what I mean by that is people we those that are like, I'm only going to carry a revolver, have forgotten that a weapon is a tool in a toolbox.
Right.
I picked the tool for the job.
Hmm.
Um, the revolver is not. There isn't one gun solution for any problem out there.
Right.
But we like to wrap ourselves around that. We like to get, well, I've got this Glock with this accessory with this part. I got this 2011 with this optic and this magwell. I got this. It's a tool in a toolbox. Pick the tool for the problem.
Hmm.
If I'm wearing a heavy jacket and I can't access my in the waistband either appendix or 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock holster, a snub nose J frame in a pocket is an absolute game changing tool.
Right.
That's where I carry mine. If I have a pocket in a jacket or in a sweater,
Hmm.
I don't have to draw it. I can shoot from inside my sweater.
Right.
Um, and this has happened in real life gunfights. There's videos of two guys are talking to each other. The guy's got his hands and he just shoots the dude.
Right.
Don't take my word for it. It's a great tool. Is it the best tool? Only tool? You got to pick what you're using it for. Ankle gun and backup, great, great gun for that.
Hmm.
Primary in a jacket on a cold day, J frame, no hammerless, perfect. Um, Only gun I'm going to carry on me when I have options to carry something with more capacity or the ability to reload. And the ability to reload, I want to harp on it, is not, I don't carry like two magazines or, two 17 round magazines because I expect to shoot 34 rounds.
Right.
If my gun takes a dump on me, the most
Hmm.
common reason for that is a magazine, right? I'm just
Hmm.
going to get rid of it and go to my new mag. I can't do that if I only have one mag.
Right.
I end up trying to have to rely on one mag gun refunctions. If it's a magazine problem, I'm basically turned myself into a bolt gunfighter with a pistol
Right.
as I'm taking incoming fire, which always has the right of way. So I'm moving, I'm trying to fix my gun, thump it, move, make your maneuver, get your gun back up in
Yeah.
the fight. So the revolver, I love revolvers. They're just a tool in the toolbox. It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm out in the woods,
Hmm.
it's hard to beat a big bore revolver
Right.
as a woods gun. But that's for non-human threats.
Yeah.
Kind of
Exactly.
still got my either my Glock or my 2011 or whatever gun I
Hmm.
have chosen for that role. If I'm wearing a suit and tie and I can't carry a big staccato somewhere because it's suit's coming off or whatever, 43X inside a tuckable waistband or something.
Hmm.
Um, Glock. There's so many options, and not just I'm saying Glock staccato. Just those are
Right.
common. You can have your anybody can carry whatever. My only requirement for the gun is it has reliability cannot be sacrificed in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
That's all. Everything else is bells and I am a fan of tricking your gun out as much as you can
Hmm.
without ever sacrificing reliability.
Right.
Cheat. All gunfights are open division, so do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
to answer about the revolvers,
Yeah.
it's yeah, I like revolvers. I love them, but understand, limited shot capacity,
Hmm.
round capacity, um,
Yeah.
and horribly slow to reload quickly while moving.
Right.
And that's the key thing is you should always be moving. If you're not moving, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. So a couple things on that. I love revolvers. I think that they're beautiful weapons. I think they're the nostalgia that's attached to them, going all the way back to like old cowboy style pistols, that's amazing. But just the logistics of it, it's much easier to fire a weapon that has 17 rounds in it and know that you're not going to have to reload after 5 shots. And even when you do, the reloading is so much faster and more
Oh yeah,
efficient,
absolutely.
you know. Now, if you're Jerry Mitchell, that's a whole other thing. I've watched videos of him
Oh
like
yeah,
unload and reload a weapon as fast as I can, or as anybody I've ever seen. He was,
faster than a lot of people can do a semi-auto.
yeah,
It-
and it's pretty amazing. But unfortunately, not everybody's at that skill level. So,
well, and
you know,
that's in a controlled environment.
yeah,
I mean, sure, he's still going to be fast no matter what he does.
right,
But I know the video, the eight reload eight, and he does it in like a second or something.
yeah, it's like it's
It's
amazing.
ridiculously fast.
Yeah,
Um, but it's a closed skill, like in a closed environment. Um, and you're right. So take that, even somebody as good as him, and put him. Now he's got to run because he's getting shot at, and he's trying to shoot somebody. He's still going to be fast, but nowhere near as fast as dump a mag, insert mag, send slide forward,
right,
return to business. I got to make it catch fire or change shape. So I'm still, the objective's still not cleared. You wait for that checkbox to
right.
go off in your video game.
Hmm.
So no, like I said, it's a tool in the toolbox. They have places. I don't generally recommend them for your primary. Like the only gun you're going to carry on you
Right.
is a revolver. Um, Not generally,
Mm.
not recommended. Then again, it does come down to what's the only gun that they have. They can't buy one. It's they
Right.
inherited. Okay, well we'll do what we can.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe go pawn it and buy a Glock. It's a family heirloom.
Yeah.
Okay, save up. It's like
Okay, we
some people
got
are like, no, we don't have to buy that gun. No, you're not patient enough to buy that gun.
right.
That's what it boils down to. And
Hmm.
then people are like, well, you're You have all this money, you're buying all stuff. No, 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 no. I'm just financially irresponsible. Don't look to me for guidance here.
Right. So, of the people that you've had like go through your training courses, do you get a lot of like I'm guessing you don't get a lot of like emails saying, "Hey, I actually got to put this into practice today," and talking about like the situations that they've been in. But
So the actual shooting of a person, no.
mhm,
But I have received a lot of feedback of, hey, your active situational awareness training, threat recognition training, and then your proactive decision making, I put into practice and I've seen it. I've used it and it's revealed things. So one of the things I like to teach is you're walking to your car, you're in a parking lot, coming out of the Walmart, whatever,
mhm,
see somebody just doesn't seem right to you. Could you scan the parking lot before you walk? Stop, look, listen, smell. Before I start walking, I just take a quick look because there may be a purse snatching happening right next to me, and I step out and get ran over because the getaway car is trying to go away.
right,
Has nothing to do with me. Like I'm not the target of that, but I'm going to be the victim of that incident,
right,
unexpectedly. So I always say, hey, just it costs you nothing, 2 seconds, scan the parking lot. Does anything immediately go, hey, that doesn't fit? Because our brains are very efficient. This doesn't feel right. Machines.
hmm
Um, we start to lose it if we start living more in denial, but that's a different story. So take a look. Okay, well, why is that guy standing in my car? He looks weird. Something's not right. I used to teach it was masks, but people wear masks nowadays, so it's not really a big clue.
yeah,
Big jacket in hot Arizona summer. That
hmm
might be a clue. Does that mean immediately draw down? Go, what are you doing in my car? You're probably going to go to jail for that.
right,
I mean, you just ag assault, you just threaten somebody, whatever. Well, no, but if it gives you cause for pause, do something about it.
hmm
Don't ignore it. Okay, that's weird. I'm going to walk this next aisle over away from my car.
hmm
Because what does it cost me? 2 seconds this way, another 2 seconds to come across. Okay, now he switches aisles.
yeah,
Okay, that's weird.
hmm
I'm going to put vehicles between me and do a third movement. At this point, he has to reveal or disengage,
hmm
because when you're doing counter surveillance, when you make four right turns, eventually somebody's following you.
yeah,
Like,
right,
hey, we just went in a circle around this block. What you didn't go anywhere.
yeah,
The fifth turn is the clue that hey, this guy's followed me for four right turns. Something's not right.
right,
So third one, come back to a different angle. Put something in between you, carts, a car, something you can see over, something that gives you angles of advantage if you had to move. Something that acts as either cover or concealment.
hmm
And I have a whole thing about cover and concealment. Something acts as concealment visually. And then at that point, hey, what are you doing, man? Can I help you with something? What do you want? Like, I'm not interested in buying whatever it is.
hmm
Well, now he knows you know. You're making eye contact. I'm not
hmm
being rude. I'm not being, but I'm letting you know. I see you. I know what you're doing. You're following me. What can I help you? What's going on?
right,
He's got to make a choice. If you're the target, he's going to do something. If you're not the target, he's going to disengage. If he was looking for a target of opportunity, he's going to change targets because now he can't catch you unawares.
hmm
And he knows that by the fact that you followed and made these decisions, he just lost those little chess maneuvers. Subconscious, he doesn't know he's playing checkers or we're playing chess. He didn't know that.
right,
And that's the way you want it to be. Like I checkmated you because you were too busy trying to jump, Oreo cookies or something.
yes,
Um, and then, so
hmm
those kind of scenarios, we're recognizing, not hugging walls and not walking around blind corners. You've had people say,
hmm
"Yeah, I was taking a blind corner. I took 2 steps away from it, and I wasn't attacked, but there was a homeless guy standing right there with a sign that would have scared the crap out of me if I'd walked and turned the corner. But because I saw it coming, taking a wide angle, things of that nature. I've had people get
right,
back to me and say, "Yeah, I've applied these things." The alternate. I always teach alternate routes of travel before you
hmm
go somewhere. Plug in your address. Google Maps will always give you three total routes. Put them in the back of your head. Accident happens in front of you. Police situation happens in front of you. You don't want to get stuck in the middle of traffic in a place you may not be familiar with.
hmm
You already know how to bounce out and take a different alternate route and get where you're going. Even if you lose cell coverage at that point, in the back of your head, you should have already pre-planned. So rule number one: always know where you're going,
okay,
kind of thing. So those I've had come back, and
hmm
people tell me that they're applying, and that to me is important because that's part of the whole EDC core. It's not everything becomes a gunfight.
right,
Now we train for the gunfight because that's the ultimate expression of things have gone exceedingly bad.
right,
Or a knife fight, either a lethal force encounter
hmm
is the ultimate expression of like, okay, this is as bad as it's going to get in my world.
hmm
Because either I'm dying or that guy's dying. So somebody's dying. But everything around that. Those
Hmm.
the other skills that you never know how many gunfights you avoided
Right.
by making a good tactical decision in your environment.
Hmm.
So those I have had students get back to me and say I've applied that. I've had a lot of my PD students. So I have a lot of cops take my classes for their off duty stuff. Um, but then they've come back with success stories of stuff they've used on patrol
Hmm.
based on what I've taught in my EDC classes.
That's good.
And so I'm always happy to hear those stories, is
Hmm.
because it tells me it's like the barometer or the
Right.
meter of I'm in the right zone here. If what because it's universal, it's just human performance factors, it's human behavior, it's context, it's um, threat recognition, avoiding a state of denial. You can apply it. The body language of I'm going to hurt you is the body language of I'm going to hurt you.
Hmm.
Change the location, change the uniform, still the body language of I'm going to hurt you.
Right.
And so hearing those stories coming back of I did this because I learned it in your class and it saved, gave me this opportunity to see something. I didn't walk right in and get ambushed, or I saw this and I made the guy, I don't know if he was going to do anything, but he didn't because I called him out on it.
Hmm.
Made the decision. Okay, cool. I
Yeah.
love those stories.
Right.
Because that's what I post, some of my reviews is people will come back and be like this, they like it. And I do
Hmm.
it for the students, not for
Right.
me. Because like I've said in like the end of my bio on the webpage,
Hmm.
I could sit up there in the beginning of my classes. I could sit up and talk about how cool I am and how all this stuff I've done this and all this experience I've done that. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I can't teach you the same skill. If I'm a horrible teacher, it doesn't matter how good I am in the world. Like,
Right.
and that was unfortunately something I realized I've taken a lot of classes from other people, and there's some really good people at what they do, but they can't teach.
Right.
And I learned nothing from the class, not to the malicious fault of the person. Like it's
Hmm.
not their. I don't think there's a lot of maliciousness. There's some probably like knowingly doing bad stuff just to earn a dollar probably out there, but
Hmm.
for the most part, most guys involved in this industry are trying to do the right thing.
Hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, sometimes the old standard block and silo isn't the right way to do it. Um, or they're just not that good of a teacher because they didn't do a lot of instructor development personally,
Hmm.
or they're just doing it the way they were taught in the Army Military Police Academy. And it comes
Right.
across and something I've learned is you cannot teach Mr. Accountant, Mama Bear with her teenage daughter
Hmm.
the same way you can teach a police recruit or a military guy.
Right.
Um, or you can't use that environment. All right, you missed. That's 20 burpees. Not happening. Can't do that. One, no one will ever take your class ever again.
Right.
And two, you might get sued because you heard somebody threw something other. But you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying? Like there's no punishment. I can't. Okay, everybody, this guy missed. So you're all doing planks.
Yeah. Good
Yeah,
luck with that.
I couldn't.
Hmm.
Not in the environment where people are paying you for a product
Hmm.
that not that they have they get to demand what's happening, but the product has to be salient, has to be transferable to their world.
Hmm.
Um, and there are not a lot of order takers in the civilian world. Like we do that in military law enforcement because there's still a structure of command.
Right.
Your sergeant, it's the order taking side of it is hey, I need you to do this because if you don't do what I'm telling you to do right now, people may get hurt or the plan that's in motion may fail.
Hmm.
Same reason, hey, I need you to take perimeter on that side because if you don't, the bad guy may get out. So you have to take perimeter if you're, law enforcement, or you're going to be part of this immediate action team. So order taking is less a thing in law enforcement, but it still
Hmm.
exists. So that's why that environment's there is
Right.
to you can't really doesn't really translate well to going to the grocery store, and I get robbed in the parking lot
I got you.
or something like that. So
So when you kind of reach the end of like the law enforcement career, like you're saying, you're going to do the 20 years and then kind of move on. Do you have uh do you have kind of like a plan about like what you're going to do with STS as far as like advancing it in so what kind of ideas you have on that?
well, my training schedule is going to get quadruple.
Okay.
So there'll be more frequent classes than there are
Hmm.
right now, and more different and various in different types of classes. So right now I'm limited. I keep it limited to fundamental handgun, fighting from CCW, fundamental carbine, and optics, fighting optics carbine class, and then a CCW class, a home self defense CQB class, and a vehicle CQC class. that don't involve any live fire. So I got 3 live fires and a handful of live fire classes. Um, they're kind of limited in scope, though. You can't really come into the advanced. I say advanced. It's just fluid application of fundamental skills.
Hmm.
But if you can't apply those fundamental skills fluently, you're going to really struggle in class,
Hmm.
simply because accuracy is the highest standard. And if you can't hit your target, it's going to make you feel bad. Everybody's going to be looking. It just won't be a very good, conducive learning experience, because I firmly believe that during your learning experience, you should be building confidence through it.
Hmm.
I like to say build confidence rather than avoid anxiety. So the better I can get at myself and the more successes that I build incrementally, increase my confidence in myself, lowers my stress level, because I'm confident in my skill level, my stress level lowers. I'm able to actually see more of what's going on, make better decisions.
Right.
So I try to build on that. So just an expansion of those classes, more vehicle classes, more home classes,
Hmm.
more scenario based classes, um, and then more team based 2 person, 2 to 3 person CCW counter ambush classes.
Oh, nice.
So, like my CCW counter fighting skills right now is single person. There's a little bit of I use a dummy, like push this person out behind you and engage a plate rack and take a hostage shot at 15 yards.
Hmm.
That's pushing my loved one away. Now I have to fight one handed.
Hmm.
But now we integrate somebody else with you, a spouse or a best friend or a son or some adult that can fight. And now, how do we make our best use of? We're both walking up to our car, and this guy he picked the wrong 2 people,
Yeah.
and that's the way it should be. Hey, the bad guy's picked us. That's his ultimate worst decision he's ever going to make, potentially his last.
Right.
Um, but how do we get to that level, right? So
Hmm.
those the goal of STS group, Sorrel Training Solutions Group, upon my when I have when I retire and I'm done with my 20-year commitment there, is just pushing forward more EDC courses to build better skill sets in citizens that are their own first responders.
Right. Sounds like a really good thing.
I'll say it I never stop saying it. The better there's training, there's untrained.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And you can't imagine yourself to a high level of proficiency in the middle of an event. It just
Hmm.
there's no combat fairy that comes in and bonks you on the head, fairy godmother, and all of a sudden you're John Wick.
Right.
It doesn't happen. And you don't rise to the level of your training. You fall back to the highest level of training you maintain proficiency with.
Hmm.
So I like to say, train often.
Hmm.
I could go take one 3-day advanced combat, Navy SEAL, night vision, UDT, one course. If I never do anything with that ever again, I'm never going to be able to do it a year later.
Right.
I take my CCW classes and I keep up my proficiency. I do the dry fire drills that are built towards maintaining that cognitive problem solving and skill application. Then I'm always able to do that on demand, drop of
Hmm.
a hat, because I don't pick the date and time, right? The bad guy does. And everything we do, the bad guy has a vote.
Yes.
He's another, he's another human. I like to say it's another cunning and capable human being
Hmm.
who doesn't want to die or get shot just like you.
Right.
The difference is the motive behind the action.
Hmm.
So I was like, how would you fight you?
Right.
And then I go, God, I'm dead. It's over. It's gonna be a long, nasty fight.
Yeah.
But that's what you should be preparing for. The highest level person you could possibly imagine is you, because you can only you have no control over who the bad guy is going to be. You only have control over if you're better today than you were yesterday.
Right. So that gets into the clone theory. So if somebody made an exact clone of you and they said, okay, 24 hours from now, you're going to fight to the death, you know, which one is going to survive? And it's going to be the one that is continuing to
The one
change.
that in that 24 hours does something
Yeah.
prior to that. That's right.
Yeah.
Every little bit of a lot is better than a lot done infrequently.
Hmm.
So that's why it's one of the core tenets. I got: do good, train often, be humble. That's on everything I did. That's just kind of the guiding life philosophy.
Right.
If I'm not doing good, I'm avoiding trouble, making right decisions. I'm not hurting people. I'm doing good by me and my family.
Hmm.
Taking care of my circle, my tribe, my people. Training often, because firearm skills, technical, tactical skills are like milk. They go bad if you don't use them.
Hmm.
It's not like riding a bicycle. Like you ride a bicycle, you can jump on a bicycle later. what people forget about that analogy, by the way, though, is you were riding a bike for how many years as a child, right?
Right, right.
Like you have 10 years of bike riding. Of course, you can pick it up later and jump on it, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now, if you change your controls on that, you can't do anything. There's a good video about that I posted on my Instagram not too long ago. I'll probably repost it. And then be humble, and that
Hmm.
doesn't mean be a victim or not stand up for yourself. That's just we're humans. I don't know your story, your life challenges, your what struggles you've been through, so I can't apply my judgments upon you. So I'm just going to stay in my lane.
Hmm.
That's what the be humble is. It's not like oh, go be this quiet little meek thing. No, no, it's I understand the humanity that I have. I understand the humanity you have. I'm not passing any judgments. As long as
Hmm.
you're not trying to hurt me, I'm not going to try to hurt you. So
Right.
I'm staying humble,
There you go.
doing my thing. So
So, and I know that you said a lot of the people that come to the courses are like word of mouth,
mhm.
but what is the best way for them to like to discover what you've got going on when the classes are and that sort of thing?
My Instagram,
Hmm.
Twitter, or X is when I post course dates,
Hmm.
and then my webpage. My webpage I'm revamping right now, so I'm really not happy with the service provider or the. Okay, I'm not a tech guy, so like
Right.
internet stuff. I'm pre Google, so the webpage people that I'm using,
Right.
I don't like the way the class sign ups are.
Okay.
They're they're too confusing. Like they work, and no one's really complained about it, but I have had out of hundreds of students, I've had two complaints. That's too much for me.
Okay.
So, and then when I look at it, it's just technical HTML mumbo jumbo, and I'm like, if it's not simple enough to where I get, if nobody like the way I view it is there should be zero complaints on how easy it is to sign up for that class
Hmm.
on the date that I'm offering it because I don't do like 17 classes
Hmm.
and it's not that easy. So I'm working on making that easier and simplifying it. So right now it's just email.
Hmm.
Send me an email. I'll send an invoice. We'll get you locked into the class. A lot of my classes, I give a lot of free material out. I've written a few little student books that I include with my classes um, that you get to take home and you do whatever you want with. They're
Hmm.
reminders, they're study materials. They're about 19 pages, nothing too crazy, but they are
Right.
little books that I've written.
Yeah.
So that, and then you get those in the emails, and I give out. One of my favorite part of my classes, I like my certificates. I think they're fancy.
Uh-huh.
I like fancy certificates. They're foil, they're stamped, they're printed, they're mountable. You can click,
Right.
like you have your PhD in nuclear bombs. That's great, but did you get your CCW certificate from
Yeah.
STS group? Because that looks way cooler.
Right.
So
Nice.
yeah, that the
So
email, webpage, and the Instagram right now are the best ways to keep track of what's coming up. The
sweet.
other thing is my Instagram. I put a lot of free information out there. I'm
Hmm.
always probably more than people have told me. We should probably not put that free information out. Make them pay for it. At the end of the day, I'm not going to get rich doing this,
Right.
and I prefer a better armed community.
Yeah.
So that's not to say I'm going to, starve doing it, but
Right. Yeah.
it's uh, it's out there, and there's a lot of free stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
expanding what's going to be available online as well.
So I think that most of the people that I've met, in fact, all of the people that I've met in this community that teach classes, whether that's firearms instruction, whether it's stop the bleed classes, tactical movements, night vision, like any of those kinds of things, right? They all obviously they're doing this. This is their job. This is they make money, gonna make a living, right? Or they do it. It's on the side, something, whatever, you know. But the underlying principle of what they're trying to get across and the reason why they're doing this is a much more altruistic idea of we're trying to make people safer. We're trying to get people better prepared and better trained. And so, yes, you do have to pay for the class because we got shit we got to do too. We got to pay our bills just like everybody else. But ultimately, we're doing this to help other people. That's the whole point. That's the point of this podcast, is to like help, people learn something that they didn't know before and hopefully come and take more of these classes and get better prepared so that they're not victims,
Yeah, well, that's what I liked about the name of the
Yeah.
podcast. It's not don't be a victim or like it's somebody's fault for being. It's non-victim.
Yeah.
I've made the decision or the responsibility or the realization that I'm not a victim. I mean, I may be victimized of something, but I'm not a victim.
Right.
I'm a non-victim in
Hmm.
in this party that we're playing. Cue the music.
There you go. All right. So on that note, we'll go ahead and end there. It was fantastic to have you come in. It
Wow.
was good to see you
Thank
again.
Yeah, it was good to see you too.
You know,
It
and
was great. I was not gonna lie, super nervous coming in. Like I've never done a podcast.
right.
I don't feel weird in front of video. Just that's a skill I'm trying to overcome or work on and
Yeah.
make better videos so that people can watch stuff they can't attend. But
Mhm.
you made it super easy. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll have to have you on again sometime. All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, you can now support the Non-Victim Nation by donating via listener support directly on Spotify. Remember, the story of your life is being written right now, and you are the hero.